am back today, and I know the background looks a little bit different, but every week is gonna look different until I find the perfect position. I can't just settle with what I got because I need it to be the perfect space for me to come and do the videos and paint and read and do all of my hobbies. So yeah, we're working on that, but for now this is how it's gonna stay. So today we're gonna have a little bit of a reading vlog because I have this book over here, A Parisian Affair and Other Stories by Guy de Maupassant. I don't know how to pronounce it. But yes, I've been very excited to read this one because I've been really into classics, and I've been going in between reading a classic and reading a contemporary fantasy or something like that, but today is classic time, so I thought that I will read it with you because, I don't know, it's more fun. This is the first time that I've read a French classic other than The Count of Monte Cristo, which I have not finished yet. It's gonna be years before I finish that one. I already know it. I am enjoying it, but you know, I'm taking my sweet time. So I thought in between, because I can't just sit down and read that huge book without a break in between, I will read this one. So yeah, we're gonna start today. This is where I got it. This is the bookstore where I bought it from. And yeah, we're gonna start it today. I am going to get all of my things, all of my pens, my markers, my post-its, because this is one that I really want to annotate. I have not read like anything really, but the little bit I've seen seems really interesting. But when it comes to classics specifically, I like to, more than just read it, I like to study them. And yeah, that's the mentality that I'm coming with when I'm coming to read classics, and today is not exception to that. I'm going to read the back so that you have an idea of what it's about. Okay, it's set in the nouveau rich Paris of society women, prostitutes and playboys, in the Normandy countryside and on the French Riviera where Maupassant lived. The 33 counts in this new selection are among the most darkly humorous and brilliant short stories in French literature. Interesting. They focus on the complexity of close relationships between lovers, a Parisian affair, or the touchingly ironical The Jewels, between siblings as in At Sea, and between former partners as in Encounter. They reveal two sides of human nature, its grace and generosity, and also, as in Boule de Suif, its greed and hypocrisy. Piquant and varied, Maupassant's stories lay humanity bare with deft wit and devastating honesty. I know there were so many words there that I mispronounced, so many names that I butchered, but you got the essence of what the book is about. Thank God I do not have to read it out loud because we're gonna struggle with pronunciation. But I will look up as many words as I can because, like I said, we're here to study it, not just read it. So yeah, I'm excited about it. And there's a little quote on the top. It says, "I always wanted to know what it was like to be wicked, and actually, it turns out to be not at all that much fun." So yeah, it seems like it's gonna be a fun time. I am going to be 100% honest. When I picked up this book at the store, shame on me, I bought it because of the cover. It's so pretty. I love the covers that have like those classic paintings on the front, and it's a Penguin classic, which is actually my first, so I needed it. It was not an option. It was not an if, but more of a when that I was gonna buy this book. So yeah, it's only 300 pages long, so we're not gonna take that long to read this one. But yeah, I thought we can start it today and I will bring you with me. And before I start, I want to show you my things. So I bought this set of pens in different colors for my annotating because I am the kind of person that needs to color code every single thing. But then at the same time, I feel like I overdo it a little bit. So I go into these waves where I need everything to be colorful, and then I need to switch and just have a black pen, because like everything else in my life, I like to overdo it. And also I have beef with my highlighters, okay? So I bought these ones, right? Pastel, aesthetic, all the cute stuff. I think after one book, 2 of them are already dried. And no, I didn't mistreat them. I put the caps on when I'm done using them. I did everything I could to keep them alive, okay? They were not it. So I went back to my old, trusty, dusty, musty highlighters, which honestly, I'm gonna be honest, I wanted to be aesthetic or whatever with these pastel colors, but I must admit, there's something about these like obnoxiously neons. It's nostalgic. It brings me back to school. It brings me back to 2012. I don't know. But a travesty happened in this household, and I lost the pink one. So I did think for a while to postpone this whole reading situation until I found a pink one. But alas, the show must go on. So yeah, we're gonna have to read the book despite me not having my pink highlighter. I don't know if I'm gonna make it alive out of this, but we're gonna try. And I also have these pens. There's one missing and the box is chewed by my tiny little boy Vander, but I love these ones. And the bottom, they have little patterns. I don't know if you can see here in the picture. That's what it's supposed to look like on the other side. So yeah, they have 2 sides, top and bottom. But honestly, I don't really like using the pattern. I mean, it's kind of gimmicky. It's cute, it's fun that it's there, but in reality, I don't really use it that much because it's so hard to keep a steady line with them. So the only times I've tried to use them, I end up making like accidental zigzags, and it's been bad. So yeah, I just use them as pens, but they're really nice because they have like a felt tip kinda, and I love that. And lastly, my little tabs, which I have to replace soon because I am running out. I don't know if you can tell, but these 2 are literally, there's just one of each. Yeah. So I am gonna have to go shopping soon. As you can tell, I am struggling here. Send help, please. But we're gonna do it. We're going to struggle, we're going to thrive, and we're going to read, annotate, and study A Parisian Affair and Other Stories. I just went ahead and marked every chapter, and oh my god. There's a lot of chapters because some of the stories are just like 4 or 5 pages long. There is just like 3 stories in the whole book that are over 10 pages long, so it should be an easy read. And I decided that because the chapters are so short and so different in sizes one from each other, that instead of going by how many chapters I'm gonna read a day, I am gonna go by pages. So the book has a total, not counting the notes, the stories are a total of 304 pages. Actually, it should be a little bit less. No, it is. So it's 304 pages long. So I am gonna try to read 100 pages a day. So I should be done in 3 days. And I marked with the green color. I wanted to go with something that looked kind of nice with the background, and I know there's no green in the cover, but I also didn't have a lot of colors left. And oh my god, I ran out of the dark and light green. That's the ones I used. So I know I said before I needed more tabs, but now it's becoming an emergency. So now I'm ready. So I just reached the 150 page of the book, and since it's the half of the book, I decided to come and do a little bit of an update. The stories are so different one from another, and I have loved some and kind of not really felt a lot about some of the others. There's not any that I could say I disliked, but some of them I'm just like, whatever. So I'm just gonna talk to you about the ones I actually cared about and enjoyed and tapped. I don't know if you can see, but I have tapped until half of the book. So yeah, we have to start with the first story of the book. I already know that I'm gonna mispronounce the name of the first story, but the name is
Boule de Suif.
So in this story, we follow this group of people from different social status, different economical status, different places in life, and they're all stuck together because of these circumstances that happen. I'm trying to talk about it without giving too much of a spoiler, and I realize that I'm being way too vague, so let me backtrack. France is going through this German occupation, and in the middle of it, this group of people managed to escape from where they're currently at through this carriage. But when they stopped one of the nights to take a break, one of the German soldiers asked them to not leave, and he has a reason for it that has to do with one of the girls in the story. And this short story is the longest one in the book. This one is 40 pages long, but I think it was the one that actually captivated my attention the most. I thought the shorter ones were gonna be easier to do that, but this story, oh my god, I almost cried in one of the parts. So yeah, because it talks about the mistreatment not only of women, but specifically women in difficult circumstances in life, especially single women that had jobs that were frowned upon by society, opposed to married women, and how just the fact that they were married gave them a different status and deserving of a higher respect in a way. So it discusses all of those subjects, and yeah, it was amazing. I loved it a lot. This is the one that I annotated the most as well. Not done annotating because I like to underline first. I highlight and underline. Let me see if you can see a little bit of it. And then after, I like to come back and actually take notes. So yeah, notes are not here yet. I want to finish the book before I come back for the notes, but I've underlined, highlighted, and tapped all the moments that are worthy of it. Okay, moving on to the next story. I'm just gonna briefly say that the fact that the book, it's called A Parisian Affair and Other Stories, is a little funny to me because the second story of the book is the one called A Parisian Affair, and I honestly found it to be so boring. Like, to me, it would have made more sense if the book was called
Boule de Suif.
Other Stories, because that one to me, not only is it the longest one, the most in-depth one, but also it's the one that I was genuinely so captivated by that actually made me almost cry. Parisian Affair, but the third story did also captivate me as well. The third one is called Moonlight, and I would say, even though the Boule de Suif was my favorite one that I've read so far, I'm only half of the book, but this one I think is very close to second. So this second story, called Moonlight, it has to do with this priest. He despises women. I know. He's a man of God, but he genuinely believes that women were like a mistake, or they were created specifically by God to tempt men, and it was like a way from God to test men, and that is his belief. But he has this niece that he's trying to convert into a nun, because he decided that the only way that a woman can be acceptable is if she's a nun, because that means that she is renouncing to everything else that makes women revolting, which in his words is the fact that they're so needing of affection and needing of love and all that. So he decides that his niece must be a nun, but he actually finds out that she has a lover. And the story, I find it to be really, I don't want to call it beautiful, because we have the perspective of this man that is at first so unaccepting of women and what makes women women. But it's the way that the story proves him wrong that I love so much. Not only does he realize that he's wrong at the end, but it's almost that he's got the whole meaning of life wrong in a sense. And I don't want to say too much because it's a really short story. This one is actually just, oh my god, I forgot how to count. It's 5 pages long, and because it's so short, I don't want to talk too much about it, but this was also one of the most annotated ones for me, and I really loved it. Now, before I mention the next story that I really loved, I feel like we have to make an honorable mention for the worst thing that I read in this whole book. And not because it was badly written, not because it was boring, but because it was a revolting. So it's called Monsieur Jocaste, and Monsieur Jocaste is disgusting. I literally, in the whole story, I did not annotate, I did not highlight, I did not underline anything except for one word at the end and one word only: speechless. Because this man, and then the last story that I will talk about for now, and then I'm gonna go back to completing the book, is the one called Regret. We're following this man that at his old age, he's realized that his life has not been really what he wanted it to be, and he feels disappointed that his life is coming to an end soon, and he feels like it was all a failure. He feels like because of his own self-doubt and because he stopped himself from accomplishing the things he wanted to accomplish, now his life has no meaning at all. And I like this quote that it says, "Being casual about things had been his greatest fault, the biggest flaw in his character, his weakness, you might say." It's about your view of life and the attitude you have towards every situation. I thought that was a really nice quote. Again, this one is a really short story, but yeah. Those were my favorite stories from the beginning to page 150. So now I am going to read the remaining 150 pages and come back again. I just saw the last clip that I recorded, and why didn't nobody tell me that my hair was such a mess? I thought we were friends. Okay, I am back from reading the last 150 pages of the book. I already finished it, I read all of it, and here's my opinions. I'm gonna start again with one of my honorable mentions, which happened to be the most dishonorable. My honorable mentions are the ones that I disliked or was so disturbed by that I have to mention them. And the first one I'm gonna go with is called The Coward, or just Coward. And here's the thing, nothing disturbing happened, but this story is very obviously about self-doubt and about how detrimental it can be to have no self-confidence and all of that. But the way that the story is told is in a way funny to me because the story is about these two men that, because of something so insignificant and petty, decide to go on a duel, you know, like cowboy style. Like, it highlights how much men had to prove their masculinity to such extent that if you read that one and you get to the end of it, you'll see how far it goes. But it's insane, and there are some parts where I find it slightly humorous because of the contrast of how in the rest of the book some of the male characters talk about women and how they look down on women because of how emotional they are and how reactive or sentimental. Meanwhile, you got these men like about to kill each other because they bumped on each other on a bar and stuff like that. Like, I found it a little funny. This one, I didn't really enjoy it as much as I just thought it was funny and ironic, you know? And then is the one called Idol? I think that's how you pronounce it. I have nothing to say about this story except for the fact that I will never be the same. Why did we need that story? That's my only question. Why? I don't feel like there was any lesson to be learned. I don't feel like there was any message behind the story. I don't feel like there was anything other than weirdness going on, and I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy Idol. Let's move on. Now let's talk about Encounter. Encounter, I was blown away by this woman's brain. Because in Encounter, we first see this couple that were in love, but throughout the years, the husband stopped finding her. He found her physically attractive, but he started to find her boring and not that interesting. And as he puts it, she's attractive, alluring, and all that, but there's nothing to her, you know? She's like an over-frothy glass of champagne. Too much bubble, not enough substance. So he's pretty much done with her, and she cheats on him, and he's like, I'm not even mad. Actually, that's great. Now we can separate and we can each have our own lives. So they do. And then 6 years later, they find each other again on a train. He hops on the train and he sees her, and she looks way better. He's immediately back to being in love. He wants to gain her attention. So he tries to start a conversation with her, and she's very much not interested. And she's like, you know, I've been doing good. I've been, you know, making myself look good like you wanted me to. I've been actually doing everything you want me to. Because when they separated, he told her, like, the one thing is don't do anything that ruins our reputation because you still have my last name. So don't go around making a mess for me to clean up, right? So she's like, yeah, so I've been doing exactly what you asked me to. I've been keeping everything secret, living my life. And then she drops a bomb on him when he's trying to push on her to come back to him. And I love her for that. And at the end, he doesn't know what the truth is. We don't know what the truth is, except for the fact that she is amazing. That's all I'm gonna say. I love this one. Look at all that I highlighted. There's more, there's more, there's more. This is all on the same story because there were so many moments that I was like, what is going on? Because the drama in this book, that's one thing that I really appreciate. I don't know if it's just this author, I don't know if it's just like these French stories have that in common. I don't know what it is, because I'm pretty sure these are all the same author, but the drama in each, even on the ones that I did not find that interesting, the one thing they all have in common is that the tea is piping hot, it's boiling, and it's ready to be served. Next, I want to talk real quick about the one called The Lullaby, and I want to start by saying that, trigger warning, That one does talk about heavy topics, and it's about this man who has seen a lot of horrible situations in life that other people have gone through. I'm not gonna go too much in depth into it, but that one was really, I don't know how it made me feel. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I actually mean it in a positive way, because it's one of those stories that when you read it, you feel like, wow, like that one was deep. But I can't say I loved it, because it didn't make me feel, you know, like anything. I don't know how to say it, but it is definitely a lot of heavy topics in that one. So yeah, I would say trigger warning, but that one was really good. Okay, there was another one that, similar to Encounter, I was feeling like, oh my god, this lady, because one thing that is, again, really common in this book, in the stories in this book, is that we see a lot of the suffering of women in different circumstances, from the treatment of men, from the treatment of other women, of people of different positions in society, of a lot of aspects. We actually see a lot of women point of view and how they feel, and in a sympathetic way, which I feel like is sometimes rare in, you know, older literature. But in this case, Mother of Inventions, it's about a couple that was obviously going through a lot. The wife seems really upset at the husband. She does not want to look at him. She does not want to talk to him. And at first, he acts like he does not know what's going on. And here's the thing that makes me sad to say, but I believe him. I do think that he did not know what was going on. And that's not to say that he was innocent in any way. In a sense, that's so much worse, because eventually when you see what happens, you're like, how can somebody that's in a couple, how is somebody that is in a relationship be so oblivious to the suffering and the pain that their partner is going through? And you know, obviously I was not alive at those times, but for what I can see in this book, that's something that happened very commonly amongst husband and wife, mostly from husbands to wives, where they would not understand the suffering of women and just basically serving their place in society, like how they were there to have kids, to be mothers, to be wives, to be a lot of roles. But and in this story, it highlights on that aspect, specifically on motherhood. Because obviously, specifically when we talk about mothers, but when we talk about women in general, we hear a lot about this maternal instinct, these maternal feelings. And because at the time, it was part of a wife's role to be a mother, to have children for their husbands, sometimes it was not really something that they can choose to be. And this was the case of the wife in the story. She never wanted to be a mom, and she happened to be a mother of 7, and she's very upset at her husband because he's never taken her feelings in consideration. And she's like, I believe that if it's up to you, we would keep having children still now. So because her husband is unreasonable, she decides that talking to him, which she has already tried, is not gonna work. So we're gonna try something different. And she decides to put her giant brain to work, and she makes this plan to trick him into not having more children with her. And it's crazy. I loved it. She's definitely one of these unhinged girlies that we've been reading a lot recently, and I love her. And just again, called Mother of Inventions, read that one. I feel like if you get this book, I'm gonna be 100% honest, there are a lot of skippable stories. There was more than a few that after reading half of it, I'm like, I don't get too much. And yes, it was the ones that focused only on men. I don't know what is it about it, but like there were some stories that were only about men, like, you know, just talking about their lives and their situations, but the way the story focused on their life circumstances, it's not that it was just unrelatable to me, which it was, but it was almost ridiculous. So I wasn't interested. Not to say that all men are ridiculous or anything like that. I'm just saying, in this specific book and maybe in this time period, the struggles that a lot of these men went through in these stories that did not involve women, I was not really interested in, so I didn't really read it. Well, I did, but I didn't finish a lot of the stories. Some of the stories, not a lot. Most of them, like I said, focus either around women or relationships with women, relationships of women. In general, it's about women. Totally like that. So overall, I would say this book was a 3 because the stories that I did like, I really liked, but it was like I had like 3 tiers. Like I had the ones I really loved, the ones that I was okay, and the ones that I was like, I'm not even gonna finish this one. And I feel like the fact that in a book there was more than one story that I didn't even feel like finishing, and multiple that I felt just okay about, I was like, okay. So I marked the stories that I would read again or address or quote, but the rest were just okay or boring. So overall, I would say it was a 3. But yeah, I think it was a good book about society in France at the time in general, because even though it talked about very specific topics at times, it all revolved around the perception of society and the people on specific kinds of people, whether it was mothers or women that worked jobs that were not seen in a positive way, or single women, relationships. There was a lot of affairs. I mean, I guess the name, but man, like, were people even in love at the time? Like, there's so many loveless marriages. So I thought that was interesting to see kind of what was going on in society at the time, and it almost felt like reading somebody's diary. Well, not reading somebody's diary, but it almost felt just like talking to somebody, you know? It didn't feel like stories, more like real life accounts that somebody's telling you. So I did enjoy that aspect of the book. I always love a book that feels like I am just listening to some gossip. So yeah, I did like that about the book. It was an easy read, so that's also a good thing. To be a book about the 1800s, I felt like it felt really contemporary. There were so many books, so many stories that as I was reading it, I'm like, that sounds like that could be happening today right now. So it was an easy read. It was kind of relatable in that sense, that it didn't feel so like hundreds of years apart as it actually is. Pretty cover, that's always a plus. My first Penguin. It's not my first Penguin, but it's my first Penguin classic, so some respect to her. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If you ever feel like reading it, please let me know. I want to talk about it. I love talking about the books I read with people, because my friends in real life, we all have different like reading tastes and things we enjoy. Sometimes, once in a while, we might coincide in a book or a genre, but yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a good day, and see you!